Hollywood rarely goes quiet, but when this news broke, it did. Within minutes, phones lit up, timelines froze, and one question spread across the industry almost instantly. How did this happen so suddenly? Catherine O'Hara was gone. Not retired, not missing, gone. Just weeks earlier, she was still being celebrated, still nominated, still talked about as one of comedy's most irreplaceable figures. And yet, when a major awards night came and went, something felt off. She never showed up. No explanation, no statement. At the time, almost no one noticed. Now, that absence feels impossible to ignore, because what followed stunned Hollywood and left fans piecing together moments they didn't realize mattered. In this video, we're breaking down what's officially confirmed, what many people missed in her final months, and why Catherine O'Hara's last chapter carries more meaning than anyone expected. And the story behind it is far more revealing than the headlines suggest. According to TMZ, the outlet learned Catherine O'Hara had died after speaking with two sources who had direct knowledge of what happened. Within minutes, the story spread across Hollywood, triggering a wave of disbelief from fans and industry insiders alike. Not long after, the confirmation became official. Catherine O'Hara's agency, Creative Artists Agency, released a statement confirming that she had passed away at her home in Los Angeles' Brentwood area. In that statement, CAA said she died following what they described as a brief illness. That phrase immediately stood out. Because while the agency confirmed her passing, they did not disclose the cause of death. No medical details were released, no timeline was shared. And as of now, outlets including TMZ and People report that the cause remains unclear. What's important here is what hasn't been said. There has been no official explanation beyond that single phrase. And while fans online have begun speculating, there is currently no confirmed information beyond what her representatives released. But as people started retracing her final months, one detail quietly resurfaced. Her last public appearances, or more accurately, the ones that never happened, raised questions no one was asking at the time. And that's where the story begins to feel very different. For millions of people, Catherine O'Hara didn't need an introduction. She was their introduction to panic, to warmth, to humor that felt human. In Home Alone, she played Kate McAllister, Kevin's mother, and according to box office records and studio archives, the film became one of the most successful family movies of all time. But what made her performance unforgettable wasn't the chaos or the comedy. It was the urgency. The way she sold fear without hysteria, love without speeches, a mother willing to cross the world barefoot if that's what it took. That role followed her for decades. And then, long after most actors are told their best years are behind them, she did something almost unheard of. She reinvented herself. As Moira rose on Schitt's Creek, Catherine O'Hara became an entirely new kind of icon. The wigs, the voice, the confidence that bordered on absurd, yet somehow never lost its heart. According to the Television Academy, that performance earned her the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series in 2020. But what made that moment extraordinary wasn't just the win, it was the timeline. Because nearly 4 decades earlier, back in 1982, she had already won her first Emmy for her writing work on SCTV Network 90, as documented by the Emmy's official records. Very few performers ever span generations like that. Even fewer managed to peak twice. Catherine O'Hara didn't just survive Hollywood's cycles, she quietly mastered them. And long before the world knew her name, her influence was already shaping comedy from the inside. Long before red carpets or award speeches, Catherine O'Hara was already considered elite, just not by the public yet. Her real proving ground was SCTV Network 90. According to the Television Academy and multiple retrospectives from outlets like Variety, SCTV wasn't just another sketch show. It was a creative incubator, and O'Hara wasn't simply performing there, she was writing, shaping characters, and redefining what sketch comedy could be. She didn't rely on punchlines. She built people. That approach became her signature. It's why, years later, she fit so seamlessly into Christopher Guest's mockumentary world. In films like Best in Show and A Mighty Wind, she wasn't handed finished characters. According to interviews Guest has given over the years, O'Hara would arrive with full backstories, accents, motivations, sometimes more detailed than the script itself. The result was comedy that felt improvised but precise, ridiculous yet believable. Industry insiders often point to her as a blueprint for modern character comedy, the kind that influences shows like The Office, Parks and Recreation, and beyond. She wasn't loud about it. She didn't brand herself as a pioneer, but comedians who came after her noticed. And what made it even more remarkable is that she never stopped evolving. Even decades into her career, Catherine O'Hara was still finding new ways to surprise people, which makes what came next even more unexpected. Catherine O'Hara hadn't slowed down. In fact, she was still actively working. One of her most recent roles was in the Apple TV Plus series The Studio, where she starred opposite Seth Rogen. According to Apple TV Plus and coverage from outlets like Deadline and People, her performance was strong enough to earn her both Emmy and Golden Globe recognition late in her career. That detail matters. Because awards nominations don't come from someone who stepped away. They come from someone still fully engaged, still showing up, still delivering, which is why one moment stood out to fans after the news broke. Despite being nominated, Catherine O'Hara did not attend the Golden Globe Awards earlier this month. At the time, there was no announcement, no concern, no headlines questioning it. Many nominees skip ceremonies every year, and this was treated no differently. And to be clear, there is no confirmation that her absence was related to her health. But in hindsight, that quiet decision has taken on new weight, especially now that her agency has confirmed she passed away following what they described as a brief illness. It's not evidence. It's not a conclusion. It's simply one of those small moments that only feels significant after everything else becomes clear. And while the public saw her through performances and nominations, off-screen, Catherine O'Hara was living a life far more private than most people realized, which brings us to the side of her story she almost never shared. For someone who spent her life making millions of people laugh, Catherine O'Hara revealed surprisingly little about herself. She was born and raised in Toronto, the sixth of 7 children, according to biographical profiles published by outlets like People. Growing up in a large family shaped her sense of observation, watching personalities, listening more than speaking, learning how people move through a room. Those instincts would later define her comedy. Her personal life followed a similar pattern of quiet intention. Catherine met production designer Bo Welch on the set of Beetlejuice in 1988, a detail confirmed through multiple interviews and film histories. They married in 1992 and remained together for more than 3 decades. They had 2 sons, Matthew and Luke. And that was largely where the public story ended. No reality shows, no oversharing, no public family drama. In an industry that often rewards visibility, Catherine O'Hara chose stability instead. Friends and collaborators have long described her as deeply present at home, protective of her family, and uninterested in turning her private life into content, which makes her final public interaction all the more striking. Because when she was last seen by the cameras, she wasn't promoting a project. She was being asked something far more personal. And the way she answered now feels like a quiet hint at how she wanted to be remembered. According to TMZ, the last recorded public sighting of Catherine O'Hara happened at LAX in February of 2024. It wasn't a premiere, it wasn't an awards show, it was just an airport moment, the kind that usually passes without much thought. One of TMZ's photographers asked her a simple question: what role would she most want to be remembered for? At the time, it felt casual, almost routine. Catherine didn't make it dramatic. She didn't frame it as a farewell. She answered calmly, thoughtfully, without knowing how much weight that question would eventually carry. Now, revisiting that exchange feels different, not because she said something ominous, but because she didn't need to. In hindsight, it reads like a full circle moment. A woman who had already done the work, already built the legacy, already made peace with how she would be seen. TMZ did not report anything unusual about her appearance or demeanor that day. There were no signs of concern, no visible alarm, just a quiet, ordinary moment that only became meaningful later. And now, as that clip resurfaces, Hollywood is reacting all at once. Because when someone like Catherine O'Hara leaves, the response doesn't come slowly. It comes in waves. Tributes began pouring in from across the entertainment world. Actors, comedians, writers, and fans shared clips, quotes, and memories, many pointing to the same thing. Catherine O'Hara didn't just make people laugh, she shaped how comedy felt. Social media filled with Moira Rose monologues. Scenes from Home Alone resurfaced alongside moments from Best in Show. According to coverage from outlets like People and Variety, what stood out most wasn't one role dominating the conversation, but how many different generations claimed her as their icon. That's rare. Her career is now being reevaluated not as a collection of performances, but as a continuous influence that stretched across decades. From sketch comedy writers to modern sitcom creators, many are openly acknowledging how much of today's humor traces back to her work. At the same time, there's a clear line being respected. According to TMZ and statements from her representatives, only limited details about her passing have been shared. The cause of death has not been publicly confirmed, and no additional medical information has been released. And that silence feels intentional. It reflects how Catherine O'Hara lived, visible in her work, private in her life, which may be why her death feels heavier than most, not because of shock alone, but because it marks the loss of someone who proved you didn't need controversy to last. You didn't need reinvention through chaos. You didn't need to burn out to be remembered. She built something steadier, something deeper. Catherine O'Hara did something very few people in Hollywood ever managed to do. She evolved without erasing who she was. She moved from sketch comedy to film, from supporting roles to cultural icons, from early acclaim to late career reinvention, without chasing relevance or rewriting her past. According to the Television Academy, her Emmy wins span nearly 4 decades. According to box office history, her films became generational touchstones. And according to the people who worked beside her, she never lost the curiosity that made her great. That's the legacy. Not mystery, not speculation, not unanswered questions, but a body of work so strong it doesn't need explanation. Comedy legends don't disappear when the credits roll. They stay. Every time someone laughs at a scene they've seen 100 times, every time a new generation discovers a character and wonders how someone could be that good. Catherine O'Hara may be gone, but her timing, her voice, her presence, those never really leave. And with that, we'll leave it here for today. Thank you for spending these moments with us, remembering a life that meant so much to so many. We'll meet again in the next video. Until then, take care.